Hello, third grade students. Happy Monday. I hope you're doing really well today. Um, I just wanted to talk to you about our math plan for this week and let you know what we're going to be focusing on and what we are going to be practicing. Now, do not get worried. The things that we're going to work on this week are things that we have already learned earlier in the year, this year at school. So I don't want you to worry. This is not a new concept. This is just going to be extra practice. And this week is going to be all about refreshing our memory, making sure that we are just getting stronger in these concepts. So this week we're going to practice area and perimeter. So my plan is for today and tomorrow, so Monday and Tuesday, to be days that we practice area. Okay, we're going to look at the area of rectangles. And then Wednesday and Thursday, we're going to do a lot with perimeter. And then Friday, you have no work. Friday is a holiday. It's a school holiday. So we actually get to continue that. And just like we would not be going to school on Friday, you're not going to do work on Friday of this week. So I am going to talk to you just a few minutes about area. We're going to take a look at a scenario here that's on my screen, and we're going to just work through this together. I want you to hear how I solve this problem that has to do with area, and then you are going to try one area problem as well here in Seesaw. And then you're going to work on Education Galaxy. In your Education Galaxy assignments, on at the red tab, you will find an assignment that has something to do with area. It's either just called area or area of rectangles. But I want you to practice that today after our lesson and after you've completed your one question that looks very similar to what we're about to do now. So what we're going to do, I'm going to read the scenario. You see here that we have a scenario. I'm going to read this, and then we're just going to work through this problem together. So here we go. If you need to grab a sheet of paper, if you want to grab a dry erase board, dry erase marker, please feel free to do so quickly, and we're about to get started. Okay, this is our problem. Andy wants to build a new pen for his chickens. He drew a plan for the new chicken pen. Use the model to determine how much space the chickens will have inside their new pen. Explain your solution process. Now, the funny thing about that is this kind of applies to me right now because I am about to start a project where I incubate little eggs, chicken eggs, so that in about 21 days, new baby chicks are going to hatch. Well, where do we keep chickens? We keep them in a pen, or in Texas, we mainly say a coop. We keep them in chicken coops. So this really could kind of, instead of saying Andy, it really could say Mrs. Loafman. Mrs. Loafman needs a new pen for her chickens. So what we do, this is how I start every math question. When I read that entire thing, I can tend to get a little confused. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break it down, and I'm going to just start back up at the top. I read the whole thing, read the whole scenario, and then I go back and I break it down, because in math, we need to break it down into smaller steps, and we need to do one thing at a time. So if we go back up there, we see, who are we even talking about? Well, this scenario we're talking about Andy. What is Andy doing? What does Andy want to do? Andy wants to build a new pen for his chickens. Okay. So we need to understand, when we're looking at this figure, we need to understand what we're measuring. Are we measuring around the outside edges? Or are we going to measure the inside area? Ooh, I just said area. So what is that? Are we measuring the outside or the inside? We are measuring the inside. We're measuring the total area that it takes up, the space that it takes on the inside. Okay. Later on, remember I told you Wednesday and Thursday, we're going to be talking about perimeter. You also could find the perimeter of a figure, but perimeter is not the inside of the figure. The perimeter would be measuring all along the outer edges. Now, what would we put? What would go all along the outer edges of a coop? Anybody know? I hope some of you said a fence, because chicken coops are all about, it's really, really tiny fencing that goes all around the outside of the coop in order to keep the chickens in. But today we're just talking about the area. So he wants to build a pen for his chickens. He drew the plan. He probably put this in his engineering design notebook. Doesn't it look like that right here? So we are going to determine the area in what? How are we going to be measuring this thing? Well, if we look here, okay, this is a very important part. I'm going to try to do this without making a big mess. This is an important part. What it's saying is that each square equals 1 square yard. So we're actually measuring this chicken coop or this chicken pen in square yards. These are yards, okay? I don't know if you know this, and it really isn't that important, but I'll just tell you a yard equals 3 feet. So, let's see. Yeah, okay, I got the right. Let me get situated. Sorry, some of you are very good at drawing and writing in Seesaw, and Miss Loafman is not. Okay, so what we're going to do is, if I'm looking at this figure here, it's a little funky, isn't it? It's kind of strange. It's a little bit weird. How can we look at this irregular figure and think of it more in straight, simple terms? What can we say about this big thing that we see here? What do you see? How many shapes do you see? A lot of you probably said you see 2 rectangles, and you would be correct. That's what I see. When I look at this, my eye automatically sees this rectangle. Oops, that's not straight, sorry. And you see this rectangle. Ooh, I need to get better at this. Okay. Woo! Okay, you see that? All right, so we're going to determine the area. Now, remember I said it's all about breaking it down, putting it into smaller pieces so that you can then put it all together and get the total area. So we're going to find the area of this first rectangle. And we're going to start by thinking of how we can measure it. Now, we could just count the inside squares. A lot of you still do that, which is fine. It's perfect. Everything is good with that if you want to count the inside squares. But sometimes you're going to find that they don't have the squares in here. They just give you numbers, okay? So we need to really think about area as length times width. And this is how we do that. We're going to count the number of squares. Let's count the number of squares in this row. Do it with me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 5 squares in this row. And how many rows do we actually have? We have 1, 2, 3, 4. Now remember, I'm only working with this rectangle. So we have 5 squares, we have 4 rows, and we have 5 squares in each row. So if we do 4, oops, I'll do 4 here. 4 times 5 What do we get? Well, we can count by fives 4 times. 5, 10, 15, 20. So this square has a total area of 20 square yards. Remember that word yards right here? That's what I'm using. 20 square yards. Okay. Now what are we going to do? Are we finished? No, we're not. We are not finished. We've got an entire rectangle that we've got to find the area of. So we're going to go, I'm going to try to find a different color. Okay, there we go. So now we've already got this rectangle. Now we're going to measure this one. And now I'm going to go, oh, here we go again. Yikes. Some of you are so much better at doing this. Okay, so there we go. Now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to find the area by counting the number of rows that we have and the number of squares in a row. So let's count our rows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 6 rows. And let's count the number of squares in each row. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have 5 squares in each row. And now we're going to take these two numbers and we will multiply them. Okay, again, you could count the squares. You can count the total number of squares. You're going to get the exact same answer. But if this were a problem where you didn't see the squares here, and you will see that sometimes where there are no squares inside, they just give you these figures, then you will need to know that you multiply these numbers. So 5 times 6, we can count by fives 6 times. Or some of you already know your math facts and you know that 5 times 6 equals 30. So if we're counting by fives, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. So we get 30. So I'm going to put that right in the center just so I know that's the total for this rectangle. Ooh, okay. All right. Now, are we finished? No, he needs to know how much space he's going to need in all. So what we need to do is we need to take everything we've done. Okay. So we're going to take the total here. And we're going to take the total area here. And what are we going to do with these two numbers? I hope you said that we are going to add these two numbers together. So we have a 20 square yards plus 30 square yards. And what do we find? 20 plus 30 equals 50. Yes. So we have answered the question. We broke the scenario down into smaller pieces. We don't want to just think of this as an entire piece. We want to decompose these two rectangles into smaller pieces so that we can think about them correctly. I hope this helps you understand how we can determine the area of rectangles. And I want you to go out to Seesaw and I want you to complete the one question that looks very similar to this. And then I want you to practice Education Galaxy under your red tab, red assignments tab. That's all for now. I hope you have a great day. Bye.